I'll introduce myself. I'm Kirsty Morris. I'm the Managing Director of Commercial Solutions for Barclaycard Payments. And I should have a clicker here. It's there. And go for that. Right. So, I'm going to spend only about 10 minutes pre the panel talking a little bit about customer experience and how we're speaking to retailers in the payment space about the importance of data analytics, insights and technology. And how breeding the right customer experience can, I guess, be a real winning factor in the way that the payment system works. So, first of all, slightly reassuring and maybe controversial to a few other opinions that I've heard over the last couple of days, what we're seeing is a continuity of trends. We run data, particularly in the UK. We take analytics from our consumer business and our processing business, and we publish on a regular basis what that spend and insight tells us. What I can tell you is consumer spending is still there. So whilst there is a cost of living crisis and there's many things happening, particularly in the UK economy, the consumer spend index continues to rise. But what we do see is that consumer trends are changing. And actually, consumers are still spending, but the way in which they choose to spend and what they spend their money on is changing. So a couple of things that the data and analytics tell us is shift from cards. So it used to be cash to cards. And as someone who lived through chip and pin and contactless, I'm showing my age now, I can tell you that, cash to cards was a really big thing. And now we're seeing that shift from cards to devices. We all use it. I remember probably 10 years ago telling people that you won't take your wallet or your purse out. And they used to laugh at me. Scoff. What's she talking about? And look, we all do it. We use our phones as our payment wallet. And not just as a payment device, but for where we hold our loyalty, sometimes receipts, and store information. That's a trend that's continuing. And I'm looking forward to the panel and some of my payment experts that I've already spent some time with to talk about that transition on the other side of the ecosystem and soft POS. How do we use devices differently in our consumer and merchant journey? Tailored payment options. I mean, this event is a really good example of the amount of technology there is out there. And it's great, it's fantastic, but if it isn't tailored, what consumers will tell you is it's too much. I want the perfect experience for me and how I want to pay and the way I want to pay presented to me. I don't want 40 options in front of me as a consumer. So I think the tailoring of payments is going to be a really, really key part to the way in which the payment space evolves. And then I touched on the loyalty piece, but personalised loyalty and going quite beyond rewards and a personalisation at scale is another sort of thematic trend that we continue to see evolve. And when I think about this, the way I was trying to sort of translate it is, when you walk into your local pub or bar and they know exactly what you want to drink, it's on the table ready for you, and they know exactly how you want to pay. That's really what this is. This is about figuring out what do you know about your customers and how do you translate what their needs are into the way you take them through your commerce journey. And there's a few other statistics there, and I think the one I will sort of call out is a lot of the retailers and merchants that we work with do see this continuing trend of changing the way in which I pay. And we refer to it as buy now, pay later, but that's quite generic. I think there's lots of different ways that will evolve over time, whether it is pay in installments. There's been the recent announcements from Apple and Apple Pay only yesterday in the US. But this will be a continuing trend, is how do I create a slightly different model? Through COVID, we saw subscription just explode as a payment method and a way to absorb services. And buy now, pay later and subscriptions, they kind of all merge. But that feels like a space that merchants particularly believe will continue. So I guess, a couple of other things that we talk, I think we're going to talk about some of this on the panel today as well, but we spend a lot of time talking with retailers about as Barclaycard Payments. Couple of trends. And just because there's tech there, how does it benefit your customers is a conversation we have quite a lot, because again, it's quite a lot of tech. So a couple here just to call out as examples of some of those discussions. So cashierless shopping. It's fantastic. I don't know how many people have used it. It's really convenient. It's really slick. And actually, it's a really nice way to engage retailer and consumer if it's an app-based solution. And you do get that increased loyalty. Challenges, because nothing's perfect. It's technically really complex and it's high cost. It's huge investment. That's the facts. So companies have to really buy into that as a service to put the investment in, and they have to know that end-to-end it's going to work. And the other thing we have seen with Cashierless is there is still some social challenges. It is occasionally referred to as legal shoplifting, because that process of walking out without any friction before I leave a store, for some people is still a challenge. So these are things we have to accept. And digital receipts, I know Boris and I were talking about receipts earlier, and this is a space that I genuinely think is a bit of a no-brainer. There's a social, economic impact of, moving to digital receipts. There is insight and data that's stored on receipts that's just chucked in the bin or at the bottom of my handbag. So how do you harness that data, and how do you create a better environment, better network and ecosystem of data moving across consumers and businesses? The downside is it's almost like the tech got there first, or the innovation got there first. The platform doesn't really exist for that to be really accessible and be scale. It's something Barclays have put into our own banking app, but it's actually how do you connect that type of service in a way that is completely ubiquitous. So there's some of the challenges. And look, I have no doubt that both these things will scale in the future, and they'll be part of the future of payments. But I think it's trying to work out at the point in which you do it as a retailer, and that's the conversations we have. And then I guess, just thematically, some of the other things that I think retailers are struggling with in the conversations that we have is total FOMO. We all have it. And there is so much tech out there, and I've heard already many times over the last couple of days, it's the next big thing. That can sometimes be a bit terrifying for a retailer, particularly if there's investment. So there is a real FOMO. So again, I go back to data, insight, and customer experience, and going back to the fact base and making sure it works for you. Not necessarily wanting it all. It's okay if we do pieces, and sometimes if you have it all, it's too complex and too confusing for your consumers. So nailing the data profiling, making sure you're offering the right solutions, and using tech in a way that works for your customers and your segment, then I think that's how you end up with happy customers and hopefully a better business model. So what I also want to do is just share a couple of examples of how we believe data and insights can help deliver the right business outcomes and the right customer experience. So a couple of examples, an online food delivery business that we've worked with, looking to expand to new areas. And this means like deploying logistics and things. This isn't just an online, there's nothing that happens on the ground situation. So trying to work out where do I deploy and expand my business? Well, actually, we can profile customers. We can look at how they work with competitors and spend with competitors and look at the profile of the type of person that is your typical customer base, and then build expansion plans with that retailer. And similarly, this is a clothing retailer example, but I think this is common with most retailers, particularly post-COVID, is the battle between online and face-to-face. There is no silver bullet. I'm just going to break it to you there. It's about personalization and choice. The way in which I might want to engage with one retailer online and then how I want that experience to be in store might be different to this gentleman sat here. That's the facts. So how do you understand the different profiles of customers to make sure that you have the right strategy in place to develop the right experience? And omnichannel is used quite a lot, but actually it's just making sure I can move around and shop and refund and have additional benefits in any way I want to. So I guess what I'm saying is there's so much out there, which is awesome. I've been in the payment space a long time, and, it used to blow my head up when we went from a device on a desk to, selling things online. So, that was a big change. But what are the things that we're thinking about now? And actually, we're doing our own business planning for the next sort of 5 years. Innovation, it has to be sustainable in every sense. As payment experts in this room, every one of us should care about this, and I'm sure we do. But even if it's not as high up our agenda, the reality is that our merchants that we serve and the consumers, and particularly the consumers of the next generation, really do. And this is something we found that came out of COVID and some of the research we did. Innovation needs to be genuinely very, very sustainable. Data, and more importantly, insights. Partners and consultancy, and I think that those four things together is what drives, hopefully, some of the right outcomes. for businesses in the payment space. So how do we recommend what merchants really should be looking for or really expecting of their payments partner? And we talk about payments partner because the reality is there isn't really one payments provider that does everything and does everything really, really, really well. So it's about having the right partnership to know who to partner with, which avenue to go down, who to connect you with, and which pieces to connect together in an ecosystem. Okay, and that means sometimes stepping back and saying, actually, we're not the right person to do that, but actually we know somebody who can. So consulting, as an ex-salesperson, which you might find hard to believe, I would love the idea of having 40 or 50 things in my toolkit to go and sell a customer. I've got more chance of selling something, right? But it's not really the way in payments anymore because it isn't a scattergun. It is about consulting and working out what's going to make the difference, not just for the retailer, but for the end consumer. So that's a really important sort of shift in the payment space. I've talked about data. You're probably bored of me talking about data. Data and insights and savvy business decisions, absolutely, that should be expected. Not everything's gut feel anymore. There has to be data-based business decisions. And there's something we haven't had before, which is test and learn. So Barclaycard Payments are a launch partner with the Visa live experience. And this is about taking merchants into a live environment and being able to sort of test and learn on some of these new technologies. And I think that's a really nice place to be. You know, we've talked about innovating and failing and experimenting. I've heard those thematically a lot today and yesterday. But this is about putting them in an environment where you can do that with a lower risk. So I think that's going to be a really interesting space in the payments arena moving forward. And then I guess finally, I represent a business that talks to consumers, to small businesses, to merchants, and to payment partners, and a lot of payment experts similar to those in the room today. And I think what absolutely is fundamentally true as merchants are looking for a payments partner is shared goals. It has to be a win-win-win, and frankly, if it isn't, it doesn't usually work. There's plenty of examples where that is the case. So I think that's something that I would, encourage anyone to think about in their sort of payments partner for kind of going the next level of the payment space, which is hugely exciting, but hugely complex. And with that, I will leave it there and look forward to the panel discussion in a bit. So thank you.